Good morning, I'm Tamara Shoemaker. So, as a camper at Bethel Camp in southeastern Kentucky, in the mountains where it was hot and humid, we used to have chapel services, and we would get into our chapel services and we'd sing our songs and we'd have our speaker come and say his piece and everything. And one of the songs I remember from that time was the song "Be Bold." And what kind of be bold, be strong, for the Lord thy God is with thee. I'm not afraid, I'm not dismayed, for I'm walking in faith and victory. It goes on. So I think boldness can sometimes get synonymized with courage, but there seems to be a little bit of a distinction. I'm going to try to delineate that a bit here. So this morning I got halfway through the first sentence in the book of Joshua when the Lord stopped me there and he said, look at this. Joshua 1:1a goes as follows. After the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord. And I stopped there. And I realized that before I dove into this book that begins with the word after, I needed to lay out a little bit of the before. So before I studied the book of James, I went through Exodus, where I read all about Moses' birth, his youth growing up in Egypt, right? His flight into the desert, his mission from the Lord at the burning bush, and then the exodus of the people of God from Egypt, which is the land of slavery. And you'd think that this rather history-making event could be taken care of in a single book, right? But you'd be wrong, because in Leviticus, the Israelites are still in the desert, and we get much of the Old Covenant laid out with its regulations. A new nation walking independently of its slave masters needs some articles of governance, right? But then Numbers spends quite a bit of time while the Israelites are continuing to walk through the desert, counting the tribes and putting tribal history onto parchment. And then Deuteronomy records the end of the journey, which is the taking of the Israelites right up to the border of the Promised Land, where they're going to finally see the fulfillment of God's promise to give them this place flowing with milk and honey. Home at last, right? Home sweet home. But home, it turns out, is filled up with hostiles. And they don't look so kindly at this incoming nation, right? The nation of the Israelites, who are on the borders of their land. And the book of Joshua is all about this courageous conquest of the Promised Land. So, why is Joshua leading the Israelite nation into the Promised Land when Moses, the servant of the Lord, as it says in Joshua 1:1a, is the nation's leader? Is he too old? Bible says he was 120 years old when he died, but Deuteronomy 34:7 says, yet his eyes were not weak, nor his strength gone. So no, he wasn't too old. Too afraid? Moses says to the Israelites in Deuteronomy 31:6, he says, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified of them, for the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. So no, he wasn't too afraid. So why, for a man who spent his life in service to the Lord, who had some crazy, amazing stories to tell his grandkids, right, about what God had done for him and through him, why does Joshua and not Moses get to be the one to lead the Israelites into the land of the land flowing with milk and honey? So if we rewind to Numbers 20, where after so many years of wandering aimlessly through the desert, the Israelites are once again grumbling against Moses and Aaron and the Lord, and they complain about their lack of water and their lack of food. And they whine and they complain and they say things like, oh, if only we had died when our brothers fell dead before the Lord. Why did you bring the Lord's community into this desert that we and our livestock should die here? Why did you bring us out of Egypt to this terrible place? It has no grain or figs, grapevines or pomegranates, and there's no water to drink. That was from Numbers 20, verses 3-5. And honestly, I get Moses' response. I really do. Because how many nights for years have I worked hard to make tasty and healthy meals for my picky children? Reworking busy schedules to try to actually cook food that's, healthy and sustainable. And, reworking everything that I've got on my grocery list to be able to pick things off the grocery store shelves that are good for them. Planning the ingredients and everything else. No, they're not going to eat that. And maybe if I try this. I love my kids, y'all, but they are picky eaters. And they shove their plates back and they say, ew, gross, that's disgusting. Why can't we have pasta? Why can't we go back to Egypt, our land of slavery? So can you imagine the gall of it all? No wonder Moses snaps. But not yet. He and Aaron go to seek the Lord's advice. They fall on their faces before the Lord. God tells them to take the staff of the Lord, which I assume is the same one that Moses had used to throw down before Pharaoh, and it turns into a snake, and this is supposed to be his confirmation that I'm coming to take the Israelites. Anyway, that staff he takes, and he's been told by the Lord tells him to speak to this rock in front of the whole nation of Israel with the staff in his hand. And if you're instructed by the Lord to speak to a rock, you better know it's the Lord speaking, otherwise you're just talking to rocks. So when Moses does obey the Lord's instructions. He gets his staff, he goes to this rock, and it's supposed to pour out the water for the Israelites to drink just as soon as he opens his mouth and speaks to it. So instead of speaking to it, he snaps. He's had it. And he takes the staff and he beats the rock twice. So I've snapped before too. Why can't you guys just appreciate the food that I've made for you? Do you have any idea how much time I spent on this meal? Do you have any idea how, grateful, truly hungry people would be to have this meal? Inconsiderate, selfish, entitled. I've wanted to list all the names. I haven't generally listed all those names, but I've come close a few times. So as I said, Moses, he takes his staff and he hits the rock twice. No talking to rocks for him. He slams his staff against it, and in so doing, he breaks something. He breaks trust. He doesn't trust that God is going to fulfill his word if Moses simply says, "Rock, pour out water." And he breaks his deference for the Lord's holiness, right? The God who created the universe asks him to do a simple task: speak. And Moses takes another route, veers sideways into a different path. So in Exodus 3-4, the Lord also asks Moses to speak to Pharaoh. And Moses lists off every excuse in the book why he can't do it, or why he shouldn't do it, or how he's a man of stuttering lips. He can't speak. And the Lord finally, after 2 chapters of excuses, he finally loses his patience and he says, "All right, Aaron, I'm going to assign him to do the speaking for you." And so Moses finally goes. But Moses, like me, is stubborn. He's a servant of the Lord from Joshua 1:1a, but he is stubborn. So, unfair as it seems to you and to me, the Lord allows Moses and Aaron to suffer the consequences for their disobedience. As James says in James 3:1, I just covered this not too long ago as I was blogging through James. Not many of you should presume to be teachers, my brothers, because you know that we who teach will be judged more strictly. So, Aaron dies, and he's buried on Mount Hor long before the Israelites cross the borders into the Promised Land. And Moses, in Deuteronomy 32:48-52, finds out that he will die on Mount Nebo. And the Lord is going to allow him to look across the borders of Canaan, to look into the land that he spent his entire lifetime heading toward, but he's only going to be able to see it with his eyes. Therefore, you will see the land only from a distance. You will not enter the land I am giving to the people of Israel. It's not fair. The people complained, the people whined, the people belittled, the people turned away, and they get to go into the Promised Land. Moses hits a rock in the presence of all the people against the instructions of the Lord, and he suffers the consequences. So he heads up onto Mount Nebo, and it says there, the Lord showed him the whole land from Gilead to Dan, all of Naphtali, the territory of Ephraim and Manasseh, all the land of Judah as far as the western sea, the Negev, and the whole region from the valley of Jericho, the city of palms, as far as Zoar. And then Moses dies. The Lord buries him in Moab, in a place that nobody knows. So, what seems like a life filled with promise ends in disappointment, right? Or does it? So, this is what happens when we focus on small pictures, small portions of stories. Yeah, I'm sad because Moses doesn't get to go into the Promised Land, but think of this. The Israelites are where they are on the borders of the Promised Land, all because Moses faced down the tribulation after tribulation, standing between the people and God as an Old Testament mediator, preparing them to enter the Promised Land. Joshua, who is Moses' aide, lives the theme of being strong and courageous because Moses told the Israelites to be strong and courageous. He sets this example. And I'm sure at least partially because of this example set before him, Joshua gives us a phenomenal look, which I'm about to study, into what happens when one follows the Lord with strength and with courage. I wrote a post several days ago about faith with feet. And I think that's where the minor distinction between boldness and courage lies. Boldness is proclamation. Courage is carrying out those words. It's sometimes quiet, but it's obedient. Moses gives the instruction to be strong and of good courage. Joshua carries it out. I'm excited to, get past the first half of the first verse of the chapter. So we'll see what happens tomorrow when I actually do that. So in the meantime, have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow. The Lord bless you.